We are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Red Hoop Talk. We have a great show for you today. I hope you can guess who's sitting next to me here. Roy wasn't able to be with us today because his job, he needed to make some money, unfortunately, so he couldn't be with us. But we have Sheldon Spotted Elk, who's Northern Cheyenne, with us today. I, of course, am Shannon O'Loughlin, citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and executive director and attorney for the Association on American Indian Affairs, coming to you from the homelands of the Piscataway Nation. And Sheldon, I turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you.
I'm done. You can take the rest over for today.
Nice, right on. This is my show. So it's so awesome to join you. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this awesome Sandy Whitehawk's going to be. This is going to be a rockin' episode. It's always a pleasure to be back on Sheldon Spotted Elk. I was a guest at one point, but now I'm a guest host. But I'm coming from Denver, home of my people, Northern Cheyenne people, Cheyenne and Arapaho people here in the Denver area. It's a terrible day actually here because the fires here in Colorado are just it's hard to breathe actually here in Denver just because the smoke is so thick, but still it's a beautiful day to be able to connect with Indigenous women actually and Indigenous people, so it's so fun to connect this way and have good conversation. So I'm looking forward to this fun day.
Good. I'm glad. And we've got some people watching. Feel free to put up on the comment board who you are, where you're calling from, if you're affiliated with any particular tribal nation. So what you been up to since last we spoke? I think it was 2-3 weeks ago that you were on.
Just a lot of work. My sons are kind of doing this hybrid thing, so they're going back to school.
Oh, wow. Are they in person or are they virtual?
One is purely virtual, and then they've Denver Public Schools kicked the can down the street to decide when to go back to school. However, my other son is going to this hybrid where he goes in person for a few days and then is online for a few days, and so we'll take the risk, I guess. I'm holding my breath on it, I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, that's difficult. We've got some folks showing up. Deanna Rivera, who was one of our guests, a couple of weeks ago. Deanna, glad you're here watching. And JD, who's a regular guest of ours. Thanks, JD, for joining us again. We've got a great show. Sandy Whitehawk, who's Sicangu Lakota, and from the Rosebud Reservation, who's also an adoptee. And Sheldon, you do a lot of child welfare work. Can you kind of give everyone a little bit of context about history in Indian child welfare? Can you just pull a little bit out of your brain, your big brain there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're going to get a lot more from Sandy Whitehawk because she actually lived it. But a lot of it, I've actually had conversations in the last couple of weeks. And so this is a good opportunity to have this conversation. Is when we look at the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978, which AAIA was a big part of getting across the finish line, some of their work. And they did the work, actually. If you look at the congressional findings around that, at the time that ICWA was passed and the years leading up to ICWA, we found out that 25 to 35% of all Indian children, you think about that for a second, so we're saying 1 out of 3 Indian children in the whole United States was living outside of their home. Of those children that are living outside of their home, 90% of those kids are placed with non-Indian people. And so there is this big push to civilize, and this is not ancient history, like this was in our lifetime. And like I said, Sandy lived this, and she's going to be able to give us a better insight in this. But there was intentionality about ripping us away from our culture. There was intentionality about trying to disrupt our families. It goes all the way back to 1819. The Indian Civilization Act actually goes all the way back then, 200 years. Right. There's been an explicit attack on the Indian family. So ICWA in the child welfare realm is the only law that is reparative And you think about that for a second. So they were trying to repair past atrocities. I had this conversation with a judge last week, actually, and he says, when do you think that repair is going to happen? It's been a long time coming. So like, there still is disproportionality. There's about a times 3 to almost 4 disproportionality of children in foster care, American Indian children in foster care. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done around getting the letter of the law of ICWA correct, but also the spirit of the law of ICWA, which is the gold standard of child welfare, is keeping kids connected to their family, connected to their culture. There's so much resiliency that comes with that. We know that. There's healing that comes with that. I'm really excited about Sandy because I know she's done a lot of work just about creating space with, like, she's a big name in Indian child welfare. Let me say that. Everybody knows Sandy Whitehawk. But instead of her just putting on a medal and dancing around and saying, hey, I'm a big name and look at me, I'm so cool, she's actually created space for other people to come in and create space for healing, actually. And so I've always had great admiration for her work and being able to do that, as opposed to just, I know sometimes that's the itch that we all have, is once we get some acclaim or recognition that we just step forward and say, oh, thank you, everybody, for recognizing me. I'm so cool and great, but she's created space for other people to find healing and find community. So,
and not just in Indian country, but the work that Sandy does, she tries to bring to all of us, to all communities. So the work that she does for healing, there's a couple of movies, a couple of documentaries that she's been involved in. I'm sure we're going to get a chance to talk about the Maine reconciliation, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Maine, right? It was Maine. And that wasn't just about healing Native people, but it had a tremendous effect on the people who were serving as the Maine state officials who were part of the process. It's a really intense documentary that I hope everyone's going to learn about and everyone will watch. There's some great people. Hey, there's great people joining us. Sandy happens to be one of the board of directors for the Association on American Indian Affairs. We've been joined by another director from the association, Joe Daniels, who's the treasurer at Forest County Potawatomi. He's also our treasurer at the association, keeping us fiscally responsible. So we're in good company tonight. We've got Jim Diamond, who's a professor who I've gotten to know from his work at University of Arizona College of Law. Wabanaki, who is a recent guest for the past few times, is with us. Glad to have you. Lance is always with us. Hi, y'all. And of course, JD on YouTube. And let's see who else. Come on, everyone. Speak up. Tell us who you are, where you come from.
Give us a shake. Yes.
So we've already given Sandy such a big intro. I kind of want to just go to Sandy, or we got to stop and talk about the Democratic National Convention or something. What do you think?
I think it's timely. Let's talk about the Democratic National Convention really quick, because I feel like there's a lot of implications for Indian country when that comes, when we talk about national politics. So, yeah.
Did you watch it? Did you watch any of it?
I just watched the speeches. Actually, I don't have live TV, so I just watched a rewind of the major speeches, the Harris speech, the Biden speech, the Obama speech, and so those are both the Obamas, Michelle and former President Obama. So I don't know. What's your thoughts, Shannon?
It was awesome. I'm one of those that is easily moved by emotion and passion, especially right now when I feel like things are so desperate in just about every area in the world where we're trying to protect. So environmental, cultural, education, economic development, all of those issues that we work in Indian country are so desperate right now. And so it was so nice to sit back and just kind of relax and consider that maybe there's some hope around the corner,
Right.
that if enough of us get out and vote, and enough of us come to the understanding, because I know for some people it's hard. They want to vote Republican and they want to always vote Republican. But we have such a dangerous man in office right now that is hurting Indian country. I don't know how many of us will be able to survive another 4 years that will be 3 times as worse as how things have been going now. But I'm on a big soapbox here, and maybe I should shut up.
No, I'm interested in your perspective on, like, because I know you do a lot of national policy work, and so this, I don't know, as far as the policy platforms that Biden,
Maybe that's what we should call him. Oh,
right.
Biden, Obama.
With our hope, getting
Yeah.
Obama back in. But I don't know, do you feel like, because I don't know, in the primaries, I was really excited about the Elizabeth Warren Native platform. She had a very razor sharp, very specific federal Indian law policy platform. But what's some of your thoughts about the Biden platform, and is it going to push the needle as far as you'd want it in Indian country, as far as the damage that Trump has done?
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren did a lot of work on her Indian country platform. So did Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders did a lot of work there too. Joe Biden did not. He did not. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, don't, let's not focus on that. We just can't have Trump in office another 4 years. But no, Joe Biden didn't go down that road until after he was, until after the primaries. But he does have that now. And that is because tribal leadership forced him and his campaign people in a room and told them what he was going to have to do. Now, I don't think he's going to be the best president in Indian country that there ever was, but I don't think there will be never a presidential leader, even if they were native, that would be able to do for us all the things we need to do. So that's when we really have to balance the pros and cons of both candidates. And I don't see it at this point in time how we cannot stand behind Biden. We just, if we're not standing behind Biden and say that we're supporting Indian country, it's very confusing and frustrating for me when I hear folks from Indian country who are still supporting Trump. And I'm trying to think of ways that I can help educate people about what that means, about what that could potentially look like after the damage he's caused, this last 4 years. There have been a couple of good things people point out, right? He did recognize the Virginia tribes. I believe that was set up already for him before he came into office. He's doing something now, which I want you to talk about. What is he doing now with the missing and murdered or the cold case files thing? Because you know a little bit about this.
Yeah, so he's setting up some offices throughout Indian country, and I know it's still coming together, is what it appears. So there's a few locations that they've selected, and so I think Phoenix, Billings, Montana, Anchorage, Alaska, right. Minneapolis. So there's a few places that they've looked at, and with tribal consultation, really helping to address some of these cold cases that have been cold for many years. And so trying to get law enforcement, trying to get the collaboration that's needed to really solve some of these cases. So that's some work in that direction. And that's responding to requests from Indian country, actually. And so that was listening and responding to Indian country. And so that was a positive thing. I think there's a good point in Jim Diamond's making a good point here in the comments that it is an unprecedented time as far as inclusion of Indigenous people. Representative Deb Haaland, amazing speech. Great advocate.
The Native Caucus and the whole Native Caucus that was there, and all of that is available on the computer. So if anyone didn't see that or doesn't know what the Native Caucus is, you can go on the Democratic National Convention's live stream and still pull those events that occurred and see the natives that are representing the Democratic Party. The Republican National Convention is coming up. I don't know what dates.
I think it's next week, isn't it? Sometime
next week.
Yeah.
But apparently, you remember that the story of the young man who bullied a Native American elder in Washington, D.C. He's going to be speaking at the Republican National Convention, and so is the couple that were pointing weapons at Black Lives Matter protesters. And I mean, that just plays to a segment of our society who Trump has given permission to unleash hatred, to unleash separateness. It's really scary and dangerous, and I don't quite understand why we would want a leader who has no ability to bring people together.
That's right.
Yeah. Have I soapboxed enough now?
No, I think you're making some excellent points, and I think just also the point, and I see Lance is making a point as well that's connected to what you were saying about an Indian president. And I think we have operated in white supremacy, and America, of course, has been born in white supremacy for so long that just having a Native person in the White House would be too hard to overcome that white supremacy all those years. And that's what we're talking about also with ICWA, actually. And this might be the segue to bring Sandy in, but just there's the child welfare system, the policing system. These systems are born out of supremacy, white supremacy. And to correct them is going to take some deep reflection by us as a society. And so I know that's going to be some long and hard work that we have to do as a society, but paramountly, it's actually white people that have to police other white people in order to really make movement on this. And so that's where we're going to have to have the biggest impacts in order to change and make some significant strides in this area. So
yeah. Well, I think that is a good transition to bring Sandy up. I hope you're getting ready, Sandy. Sandy, do you want to introduce Sandy, Sheldon? I don't know how long have you known Sandy?
Oh man, at least over 5 years. I actually met her husband, George McCauley, before I met Sandy, and he used to do a lot of work around ICWA assessments, and so I got to meet him when he was doing some work in Utah where I used to live. But Sandy also came and gave a keynote speech in Utah and did an excellent job and just really rocked the house and knocked everybody on their butts, as far as what they need to be doing with connecting children to community and working hard in that way. But she's an adoptee. She's the one thing that I'm really excited about, if you mind me taking a quick step back, I think your show does such a great job, and I'm so honored to be a part of it again, but a great job as far as having us reflect on what Indian identity is. And I think sometimes there's a lot of shame connected to that. So sometimes there's shame about like, oh, I didn't grow up on my reservation, or I don't speak my language, or I was adopted out. And I think Sandy she's so comfortable with her identity and so comfortable with being vulnerable. She is magnetic. She's a magnetic individual, and she's a healing individual, actually. And so her story is powerful. For her to find hope and share hope with everybody else. And also tell the truth. She tells the truth about her story, and some of that truth is very painful, but she just honestly confronts that truth, and so that's what we need to do in order to reconcile, of course. But she's a lovely woman. I look at her as a mentor, somebody that is a change agent. I want to be a change agent, so I look to her. I want to be like Sandy, and so we all should be.
Yeah. Well, that was a beautiful introduction, Sheldon. So I'm going to bring up Sandy. Get ready, Sandy. Here we go. Da-da-da-da. We don't have any music to play.
Where's the drum roll? Or the drum sound? Wow,
Sheldon did good, didn't he?
That was amazing, Sheldon. I almost teared up. what you said was so true. I want to pick up on the shame piece about identity, but I want to tell a quick story, and I'm hoping that it always, when you're young and starting to work and people see you, we see the maturity, but we always like to go back to tell the story of how they were when they were young because we saw things in them. So I remember when George came home from a meeting in Utah, and Judge Thorne was there and other folks. George was working at that time on a program, a software program that he and Paul Meinhardt developed called Quickwa. And it was a data collection online case management system. And it was quite revolutionary. There still isn't anything like it in the field. But he came home and he said, gee, I met this young man, Sheldon. He said, Sheldon, spotted elk. I said, yeah, I haven't heard the name. He goes, well, he just graduated not too long ago. And he kept making sure I had coffee and donut, and he looked after me. And that told us where his heart was, right? And that told us that he goes, that always tells me something about them because I'm nobody. I'm not a well-known judge. I'm not a person that, everybody knows. I'm just here. And he said, and he took, and so that tells us that Indian heart, that when people are taught to take care of their elders, and he always remembers. And when it's a male, it really speaks to him. So Sheldon's always had a place in our heart because of that. So he didn't, he was just being Sheldon within the context of the professional place that they were working. So we don't have to take off our Indian hat to be in that environment. In fact, that's where we should really be strong and be within our values, within that professionalism. So Sheldon's all grown up now and a very experienced lawyer and speaker, and so yeah, it's a honored. I'm so excited, Sheldon, that you're going to be the person on here. So and Shannon even told me, she said, don't worry, Sandy, because when I get excited, sometimes I cuss. And she said, don't worry, you can cuss on here. So unless I get really riled, I won't. But at least I don't have to be concerned and worried that I don't have to. So
even though
thank
it's
you.
Sunday night, it's still okay.
Yeah, cuss away. It makes it actually better viewing, better viewership.
Yeah.
and we were Sandy and I were talking about you too, Sheldon. I don't know if your ears were burning on Friday or whenever that was, but yeah, we were talking about how you're just a wonderful young man. I mean, we almost look like you're some kind of 20-year-old young man. We know that you're but you are just such a gentle man, and we are so happy to know you and get to work with you. So
Sandy, tell us about identity, Sandy.
His face is turning red. Look at his face.
I know. It turned red earlier when I was saying that about him. Don't mind me. I'm texting people to how to get onto this show. So I said, go to the Facebook page, Association of American Indian Affairs, right? And then they just
go to our website and go to Red Hoop Talk. So if you go to indian-affairs.org, there's a little thing right on the top that says Red Hoop Talk.
Indian-affairs.org.
Hit on Red Hoop Talk and
click on Red Hoop Talk. Click on Red Hoop Talk.
Yeah. And you have to forgive me. I'm drinking hot tea right now because the air here is so terrible, and it's I'm trying to get my throat, so I have this silky smooth voice for this great word.
Yeah, you can hit on we have our YouTube channel. You can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on our Facebook.
Yeah, I've been telling people Facebook, but
so
we're this generation that, what do you mean? Where's the number? Come on, just put it on here. It's like, go to here and click on there. It's like, just
Google search Red Hoop Talk and you'll find it.
There we go. Or I'll say Google Red Hoop or Google search. I can't just leave them hanging.
Here's a question. Joe Daniels, Sheldon, you may want to address this question.
Yeah, definitely. I was taking a look at that. And so, of course, there is such a pushback. So recently, the Children's Bureau was putting some new guidance around collecting more data around children in foster care. Right. So that collection system, it's an acronym called AFGARS. I'd have to look it up to tell you what it stands for. But it's the data that tells the story of every child that goes into foster care. There is pushback on collecting more ICWA-related data, and I think, I don't know, on the best end of it, if I'm trying to be forgiving of people in the court system around this, it's probably because there's a lot of data points to collect, but also on the other end of it, there's a lot of states that are really non-compliant with ICWA data. When we look at children in care, like I shared that point that there's ×3, almost ×4 American Indian children disproportionately in the foster care system. In some states like Minnesota, where Sandy's from, it's up to 18 ×18. And there's a lot of other states where it's really significantly high. So, but that's a good question, Joe. There's a lot of pushback in that.
Yeah. And someone asked, how do we find if a state is non-compliant? Your state is non-compliant. That's how you find out. Every state has
non-compliant
issues with ICWA and ICWA compliance. Some are better than others. And that's where we actually have this data, right, Sheldon, that you have. We have that data because the state is actually taking some data. Most of the states where we don't have data is because they're the ones that are majorly problematic and aren't doing any data. But Sandy, we got to get back to you. So where you come from? Like,
when I first used to tell my story, well, I have to give, and I have to give a shout out. I don't know if there would be anybody from Madison, Wisconsin, the place where I used to live before I moved here. I lived in Madison, Wisconsin. I grew up primarily in Wisconsin. And I used to start my story, especially if there was young people, I'd say, way back in 1953, I was born. We're pretty sure I was born in the backseat of a car on the way to the hospital in 1953 in November. And when I was starting putting my information together, we're still not exactly sure if I was born on November 29th or November 30th or November 8th or November 9th. So that may not seem like a big deal to people, but it really is a big deal because your birthday is central to everything, right? It's central to you celebrate every time you give information at the VA. I was just at the VA and I was asked, I don't know how many times, part of identifying yourself at the pharmacy, any place else, and give us your birth date. And there's a part of me that when I say, 11/30/53, I want to go, maybe, but we're not sure because that isn't anyway. So I was born on the Rosebud Reservation. We think in the back of a car, on the backseat of a car. And because I was born there, they turned around and went back home. So, and the reason we know this is because there's no record of my being born at the hospital in Rosebud or at the hospital in Winter. So, or it just means I'm an alien, as my husband says, but we're not. We could be. I just took on the identity as a Lakota. Well, anyway, I was born there. I was the third child of my mother, Nina Lulu White Hawk Garnio. And it was during that time, 1953, when there was a systematic removal of our children. It really was, they don't have electricity, they don't have running water, there's too many people living in a home, all the things. And there's a part of me that used to get just like dumbfounded and mad all at once when I think, we all remember back in the day, I don't know, you guys are kind of young, but back in the day, they used to have all these old country songs. And then these guys would get up on the Grand Ole Opry and they say, we were so poor, we didn't even know we were poor. And I'm like, well, how come white people got to be poor and we didn't get to be poor? Their kids didn't get taken away when 25 people were living in their home. No, they didn't have shoes. They tell all these stories that that poor people share throughout all races, right? Because poverty is poverty. But anyway, Native Americans, it was not, that was a standard that was white social work standard was applied. And so I was, it's not clear how social services found out about me, although my siblings before me were one was put in boarding school and one was in and out of foster care. So my mother really suffered, like a lot of people at that time did, suffered from her experiences. And of course, there were no resources, and nobody ever knew at that time they needed healing, that they needed, support, that they needed. And I will never forget the first time I met one of my uncles. My mother was the oldest of 20. And the day that I found them, in July 1988, my Uncle Terry said, your mother loved you. She did. She loved keeping a home, but she struggled. And then he left it at that. And I got it because I was just about 7 years sober at that time. So I understood that. I got it. He didn't have to fill in any blanks for me. And it was awesome to just hear that little piece, that as her brother, he saw that, witnessed that. And another uncle told me, he says, I remember the day the social workers came and got you. He says, I remember the day they drove into the driveway, came in and scooped you up. And I remember thinking afterwards how hard that must have been for my relatives to have to just sit there and not do anything, especially these big, strong Lakota guys couldn't hang on to their little 18-month-old relative. If they would have fought that social worker, they would have been put in jail, and I still would have been taken. So it wouldn't have made, but how that must have felt. How can you imagine, just driving in and in front of everyone, take me?
I think that's the untold story of child welfare too, is that the harm that it causes parents when somebody comes in and says, do you know what, your kid is going to be better off with me.
Yeah.
And how that breaks the heart of a parent. Like, I know I'm a father, I have 2 sons, and I can imagine if that happened to me, I don't know if I'd ever heal, actually. Like, if my was ever undermined in that significant of a way, like, it'd be so hard to trust myself even, like as a
Exactly. So much shame.
Yes.
So much shame. And so anyway, I was adopted out. Unfortunately, one of the churches in the area really did let social workers know, hey, this family is struggling, that family is struggling, or the church people saw us, families struggling. And so I think that's partially how I was identified. And what pisses me off, when I used to, especially when I was first would recount my story, I'd think, well, why didn't anybody help her? Granted, she might not want to have stopped drinking right away at the time, but nevertheless, she still was a mother, and there's still ways to help people, along the way. And I also found out each year I would go back. I remember when the first year I went home, my Uncle Manfred would say, come back to Rosebud Fair every year because that's where you'll meet other relatives. And when you come back, come visit everybody, because my brother lived there and several of my older uncles and my one aunt.
How old were you when you went back for the first time?
So 1988, and I was born in 1953. What's that? 35-ish?
30, yes.
Yeah, 35.
Yeah, 35 and 7 years sober, and processing, healing from all kinds of abuse that I had went through in my adoptive home, hearing stories back home about, oh, we wondered where you've been. When they told me how I was taken, I mean, that adds another layer of rage. What I met, I remember being told, you have to go meet Doris Fallis. She's your mom's cousin. She took care of you. So I find her, I go to her, see her. And when she sees me, she goes, and I go, okay, that's cool. But I said, what is the reaction? And she goes, you had blonde hair when you were born. And I'm like, blonde hair. I said, okay, that explains it. No, And I met several elders, I mean, older relatives who would see me and go, you had blonde hair. And then my uncle finally told me that a lot of us that have black hair, we were born with lighter hair. Like he had lighter hair, and and then my other uncle said, well, that's because you have all this French fur trapper blood in us, in our bloodline. You know, that's the name Garnier. And, but anyway, so I go back, I find everybody, and or find most people. And I remember another uncle told me that he says, somebody new each year comes back, a relative each year comes back finding us, you know. So when you figure my mom was the oldest of 20, that's a lot. And I was one of 9, all but which 2 were adopted out or raised in foster care. So, and then I haven't even done research on the others where, you know, I just take relatives as I meet them, right? But I got to tell you this story too. So, you know, when you come back to your relatives, you know nothing. I knew nothing. I didn't know there were other Indians in the world. I thought I was the only one, because where do I see them? Where are they? They're not, you know. So I'm visiting
your adoptive home. Where is that, in another place? Or?
That was Reedsburg, Wisconsin. I basically grew up in Reedsburg. Initially it was in a farm in Cazenovia, beautiful rural area, southern Wisconsin, and then moved to Reedsburg, another small rural town. Yeah, with totally white rural.
But the only brown face around, huh? You're the only.
That was it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it. And so anyway, so this, I think it was the second year I was home. I was visiting my uncles, the 3 oldest, and they sat me down, and so they're telling me all kinds of things about the land, history, different things. And my one uncle, I still have it. He pulls out the 1868 treaty. You need to read this. This is the treaty. We never signed this, so we're still at war with the United States government. And so I have no idea what that means. You know, what's a treaty? I know nothing. I just get this document that's printed poorly, almost mimeograph style, but it's got coffee stains on it and everything. And so I took that, tell me a bunch of other stuff, and then don't tell people you're Sioux. You are not Sioux. That's what white men call us. You're Lakota. Don't ever say you're Sioux. And, you know, and I'm like, I didn't even know really that to what I have said, even that I'm a Sioux, because I had no language. I had no identity. I knew nothing. And so I just said, okay, I'm Lakota, whatever that means. I didn't still even know that. But you'll really love this one, you guys. So then he says, at the end of our conversation, he goes, and whatever you do, don't bring home a crow. And I'm like, a crow? What does that mean? I was too embarrassed to ask him. I'm like
a crow? Like,
well, that's what I thought. I mean, I didn't know there was a crow tribe. I knew nothing.
Right.
So, so years later, I tell someone that years later, a person tells me what that means. I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious. Well, anyway,
I love that we got a laughing emoji in the comments on that too.
Oh, good. don't bring home a crow, huh? and then many years later, when I recount that, I really appreciated how every time I saw them, they would try to tell me something. It wouldn't even be very long. They would just tell me something, right? And or they would laugh at me, and or, you know, because I'd be really I'm really kind of spacey, actually. And they told me I reminded them of one of our aunts. You know, one of our aunts is like you. I go, what do you mean like me? What's that mean? They go, well, you're just kind of all over the place. Okay. But I so appreciate, they're not with us any longer, you know, but so I just appreciated their realness. They just were, and their humor was just crazy. I got to tell you one more crazy story. Since we're all Indians, I can do it. Our oldest granddaughter, my daughter had her first baby when I said, you have to name her Nina if it's a girl, because that's my mother's name. And I said, I wanted to name you Nina, but your dad would not have it. He didn't think it was whatever. So I said, Nina, we've got to have that namesake before, you know, before we lose that opportunity. And so her and her husband agreed. So we named her Nina. I would bring her out to the reservation, you know, going home for Sundance, going home for powwow, going home just to visit. So when we would bring the baby around, because her name was Nina, oh, it just made my uncle so happy. And he would tell people, this is Nina, baby Nina. And so she got older and was running around. Now her dad is Navajo, Apache, and Quetzal, and has a darker skin. And so one year, I think Nina's about 5, and we took her to see Uncle Manfred, and he had always said, every time he saw her, he'd say, I really like her color. And I said, yeah, she's a pretty baby. And he would just look at her, and then as she grew, so when she was 5, he still said that. One time we're at the house and he goes, gee, she still got her color. I really like her color. And I said, yeah, she takes after her Navajo dad on that one. And he goes, she'll outgrow that. Oh, but just that old timey, you know, that old school humor. Doesn't mean anything mean about it. Just, you know, that she's not full Lakota. I should have said, well, at least she's not part Crow.
Yeah. So you get some good medicine, some good Indian wisdom when you go.
Oh, shoot. But you know, the other part of the under part of that story of going home every year, you know, the second or third time I went home and made my rounds visiting and getting to know, my brother lived there. So I started getting when I met my brother, it felt like we knew each other. We just, you know, like, it was so crazy. A few years after, we would always go and stay with him whenever we came home. So one year, about 3-4 years afterwards, he came, the movie Predator was playing in the living room. And I said, oh my God, I love this movie. He goes, you do? I said, yeah, it's my favorite movie right now. And it was his favorite movie. We had all these similarities, you know. He had his daily treat, big old treat, was a Snickers bar and a Diet Pepsi. So was mine. Just weird, random things like that, that we were the same. The kids would laugh at our mannerisms. They'd say that they saw a lot of similarities. So we didn't do a whole lot of talking right away, filling in the blanks, because we had a lot of time that we just were quiet with each other because it just felt like that. But when I would find out information, like it's about the 3rd year into being home, I was filled with rage, absolute. Oh my God, I can't even put words to it. I would wake up with my fingernail marks in my fists. And I literally went to a meeting every day, sometimes twice a day, because I was so fucking mad. How did this happen? Why did this happen? I would always heard that the reason I was taken was because my mom drank. She didn't want me. Nobody wanted me. I would have a better life in this adoptive home. I should be grateful. I remember my mom saying to me, yeah, your mom didn't want you. She just wanted to keep you so she could have a welfare check so she could drink. And then I go home and I meet my relatives and I go, yeah, some of them drink and not all of them do. And Doris Fallis literally raised all who needed that extra little oomph. And she kept me for months at a time. That would have been my safety net, as it was many in our family's safety net. Mm-hmm. So it was so hard to come to terms with that. And I was really grateful that in Madison, Wisconsin, where I was living at the time, that I met the Indian community there. And I should tell this story, because for anybody's out there who, when you said, how do you stay close to culture? Here's how and why, because it's an everyday life, a way of life. It's not I pick it up on one day, put it down, pick it on another day. But someone had shown me how to pray with tobacco by this time, and every day I would go out and I'd put this tobacco down and I'd think, okay, but I mean, I just didn't even have words. I would just put it down. And one time when I came back from Rosebud, that anger was so there. It was so intense that it was, yeah, like I said, rage. And I went out behind my friend's house and I was this kind of funny and sad all at once. Like I took this and I was like yelling at God, yelling. I had I said, why did you do this? Why did you do this to me? You created me. Everybody's saying creator. So you're the creator. So you made me. You made me what? You made me Indian, and now I'm over here. What sense does this make? That was my exact words. You made me Indian. I'm over here. I was abused by. I just was going on and crying. I'm mad. I'm pacing back and forth, and out where there wasn't anyone behind there, so I was really glad no one saw this. But when I look back on it, I must have looked like like a young child who, when you say, no, but you can't go there, baby, it's going to hurt, you stay here, and then they have a fit. That's what it felt like. I was having this emotional thing. And I said, so the funny part is, and I laugh because the one of my elders who taught me stuff used to say, pray from your heart, not your head, because if you pray from your head, then you start telling Tukashila what to do. So that's what I did. I told him what to do. I go, and I don't even have an Indian friend. I don't even know where there's any Indians. I want an Indian friend. And from now on, I literally said this. I want you to talk to me like I'm Indian. What does that mean? But that was my prayer from the heart. And I put my tobacco down, and I swear it felt like I just went and stormed off. And about a month later, I'm at my AA clubhouse. Never seen a brown person at this AA clubhouse for all these years. Not a black person, not a Mexican person, all old white people. Old white men, retired, and a good clubhouse. I got a lot of sobriety there. Anyway, in walks a brown woman behind this white woman who I know. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. She's walking and I'm like, wow, is she Mexican? I was just, and she starts talking, and she's Indian. She's from a tribe in Wisconsin, but she just coming back from a relapse. And I immediately went, don't talk to her. You do not need to talk to anybody because I had to protect my sobriety, right? I didn't, and she just relapsed. So, but nevertheless, she came up to talk to me because she said her sponsor told her I had a lot of sobriety, about 10 years by then. And could, we talk? And I'm like, I'll give you rides to meetings. And so she's the one who introduced me then to the Indian community there in Madison. And who knew all these Indians were in Madison? I'd been there 30 some years and had no idea, none. And that community nurtured me and my children into what how to be part of a community, what it means to be part of a community. And I was just talking to one of the women just a couple of days ago. Her husband was like one of the community leaders, and he's no longer with us. Anyway, I was telling her, I said, man, that was a miracle. You guys were a miracle. And I told her, I said, here in Minneapolis, we have wonderful programs, but no place meets every Sunday as a community like the way Madison did for those 20 plus years that I was there. Every single Sunday, we went there and hung out. And I used to laugh too. I said, well, it's probably because there's only 200 and some Indians in Madison, 90,000 people. We had to, but that is what grounded me. So each year I would go home and I'd come back and talk, and just by being with women, other Indian women, I came into myself, I guess, became who I was meant to be, and no pressure.
If you mind me rewinding just a little bit, what was the impetus behind turning 35? Like what was going on like as you're growing up and making you want to reconnect? Because I know there's a lot of people that they end up finding out their tribal community that they're from, and they don't want anything to do with it, but to have that courage to say, I want to go and meet my family
Yeah.
and reconnect with my community, Rosebud community. What was the impetus behind that? And like, what gave you the courage and the vulnerability to do that, you feel?
Well, I wish I could say I just woke up one morning and went, I'm going to go do this. Nothing I have done has ever been like that. It's another story. And since Shannon has said we can do these out here and not worry about time, sit back, everybody. We got another. No. So in order to stay sober, I witnessed and saw how other people faced different things in their past. And so I heard how people who had witnessed their parents being abusive, or they had sexual abuse, or some other kind of physical abuse or neglect, and how they healed that. What did they do? So I always listen, and I had nothing had come up for me that I knew I had been physically abused, spiritually abused, and talked about that a little bit, but not much at all. And one day I had like a blip of a picture of abuse, and I was like, what the hell was that? Well, whatever it was, it scared the piss out of me. I mean, because it was like a visceral response to this picture in my mind. I was like, what the heck? So just I was one of those people in early sobriety that you told me to do it, I did it. I just knew I didn't want to drink again. That's all I knew. If somebody said, you're messed up, you need to go do this, I did it. I immediately called the Rape Crisis Center. And I remember as I was dialing it, I'm going, what am I going to say to these guys? I don't even. So I get on the phone with somebody and I say, so I'm in the fairly early sobriety, and I don't know what this means, but I have, and I explained it to them, and they said, oh, well, you should just come in for an assessment. Are you going to hurt yourself? Whatever. No, call back if you have whatever. And I said, all right. Hung up the phone, nothing again, until I go in for this assessment. I go in for this assessment. I tell them what I see in my blip, and they do ask me all these other questions that nobody's ever asked me. And I'm like, oh, that's what that is. And that's when I first was exploring that I had been sexually abused by my mother, my adoptive mother. And I went into this group. She said, I suggest you go to this group. And I'm fighting this in the back of my head going, geez, and that little voice that always says, Sandy, you want to stay sober. You can't stay in rage. You can't stay, this little thing there. And so I went to this group, and I remember thinking, oh, Lord, it was like a room full of these big pillows, and people were sitting on them, and they had chimes and candles. I thought, what the hell is this? I just was scared to death of them. I thought this is just going to be some kind of woo-woo stuff that I'm not going to want any part of. But interestingly enough, the full co-facilitators of this group were Puerto Rican. And so being brown, I think I subconsciously just kind of like gravitated to them and trusted them differently, because the one was even from Ceiba, Puerto Rico, where I was stationed when I was in the service. So we had all these stories of exchange or whatever. So I had never had that with a counselor ever. So we get to this part where they say, they would give us assignments every week, and I would do them. I thought, okay, I'll just do this. I had no idea what I was in for. Finally, they say, Sandy, not Sandy, but everybody, we want you to go home and get something that is emotionally significant to you. Bring it in and let's talk about it. And I remember I was so cynical and such a snot at that time. I remember thinking, that's stupid, such stupid shit, but okay, I'll do it. But I didn't. I didn't because I thought it was stupid. What does that mean? Emotional significance. What the? I really just wrote it off until about an hour before I had to get in the car and go to the next session. And I thought, holy shit, I better figure something out. So I had just moved, and I had these boxes out, and I was going through them, and I was thinking emotional significance, pictures of my kids, DD 214, discharge papers, nah, And then I came across this envelope that said, Sandy's adoption papers. My adopted mom had just given me some paperwork, and it said Sandy's adoption papers. And I went, I don't even know what that is. I'll just bring this. And so that's the creator working, not me, because I had never seen it. I'd never looked at it. Why would I bring that? Why would I bring that to, but because of where my brain was at, I guess the creator just had me on automatic pilot. So I bring it to the group. The group has all this, they thought out all their things that they brought. They had these incredible stories. They were crying and healing, and the room was just full of emotion and healing, and comes to me and I go, well, I got to confess, I didn't do the assignment. And I'm really sorry because you guys did all this, right? And I'm just sorry. So I'll pass. I'll pass. Yeah, right. Well, anyway, the counselor goes, well, Sandy, what did you? You brought something, right? And I go, yeah, but I've never even looked at it. I don't even know why I brought it. So I don't feel like it's fair to just do this thing that I didn't participate. I didn't prepare. They said, well, what is it? And I said, it's my adoption papers. And I swear to God, that counselor's eyebrow went, ding, like, whoa, she's going to crack this time. But she just leaned forward and says, why don't you just get it out and let's look at it? And I'm like, okay. So I open it up and I start to read it. And I'm thinking, she's just doing this to me to make me feel bad, shame me out because I didn't do the assignment, because that's what happened to me in school. They always try to embarrass you, make you feel bad that you didn't do. So I'm thinking I can take that hit. If that's all you're going to do to me, I've survived way worse. So I'm reading the document, and it's all this legal stuff. And then it gets to the part where it says, said child, meaning me, said child is a child of the Indian race. And Indian isn't capitalized, and it's typed in on top of this document. So that's, back in the day. And I stopped there and I said, I started feeling like I was reading a story about a horse or a dog or something, not about me. And she said, Sandy, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Talk to us. And in a way, I almost like had this break where I felt like I was talking, because I was in my head talking. And it was like this little brown girl was behind this door trying to peek out. And I remember I literally looked, because it was that real. I literally looked, and I was going to cuss at her. I was going to cuss at her and say, get the fuck out of here. And I'm like, that shocks me, right? Like, what? And I'm thinking, I'm losing my mind. And then I look back down, I'm crying. And finally, I just say what I was thinking, that I feel like I'm a dog or a horse or something, these papers, and I don't even know what it means to be Indian. And I picked those papers up and I threw them, and all this stuff came out of me. And that little brown girl kind of finally came out and was looking at me. And I started having these memories just flooded my mind, and I started just verbalizing everything I remember. And in the film, that blood memory, that suddenly that came, and I realized that I've had these memories, but I was always watching this little brown girl. So from the time I was 18 months old, I was so traumatized, I left my body and watched her and hated her, didn't want nothing to do with her, because she was the one who nobody wanted. She was the one who wasn't good enough for anybody. She was the filthy Indian, the dirty Indian, and one, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so when they say we all have a little kid inside of us, that shit's true, man. That is true. And they taught me how to nurture her and give her that validation. And my adoptive mom was alive, so I went to see her and I said, is this true? Was there a red truck? Was I lifted up and put in a red truck? And right at that time, did we go right to the house? And was the house laid out like this? And she confirmed everything, right? And she said, you were a nervous wreck. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not my mom. She always turned it like there was something wrong with me, and I was having a normal reaction to an abnormal situation, right? And so that when I got home from, and the other thing that happened when I got home from that session, I got the probate papers out. So I had been sent probate papers, but I was afraid to even look at them, and I had totally forgotten. I didn't know about the adoption papers, but I had known about the probate papers because those came to my house right after my mom died, and I just took them and tucked them. I didn't know. I was like, well, I don't know what this is, what it means, nothing. So I got them out and I looked and I saw that I had these brothers and sisters. Suddenly, the first one, Edith, I had a recall of my mom talking about her, why she had the name Chop, because of her eyes, and Leonard. Oh my God, all these memories started coming back of things she had said that I had tucked away, and I determined then it was July. Well, it was the month that comes June, so it was right around June-ish at that time. And I just wrote home. I wrote a letter to Edith, said who I was, said I want to meet people, meet our relatives. And in July, a friend of mine had to go to Colorado Springs. Did I want to ride along with her because she didn't have a spouse, and she had this benefit that, she could bring a friend because everyone else had spouses and she could bring a friend. And I'm like, sure, I will go if we can go via Rosebud so I can meet my family. She goes, yeah. So that's how I got home to meet my family. I would not have gone. I don't know if I could have gone home without having had that experience in that therapy group. And I didn't even know I needed that therapy group, right? I didn't know. I just was, just fumbling along, trying to stay sober, trying to heal. And then there it was. And so when I got home 7 years sober, I'm really glad that I had that sobriety under my belt to handle all the emotions that came after that. So it was just sheer, I'm done. This is who I am. I'm going to find out who I am. And that was the impetus that got me home.
Wow. That's so incredible. And it's such a journey that, I don't know, just as far as I feel your anger, actually, and I'd be angry. I'm angry with you, actually. I'm fucking pissed, that's a terrible, thing that happened to your family and happened to you, and your journey about reconnection and healing. Amazing.
Can I tell one other quick story?
Please.
Oh, gosh. I wish I could make out his name.
You have a comment in here. Somebody complimented you on your great storytelling. So tell away, please.
Somebody said what?
You're a great storyteller.
Oh,
yeah. Count.
I don't even have to make shit up. It's all true. Okay, so I got to tell you, so on this trip that I go home to meet my family the first time, so we do stop in Rosebud, we meet people. It's a fun story, but let me tell you this other story instead. So I find my uncles, I find my aunt on the way to Colorado Springs, where my friend has to go to this conference. I tell them at the end of the day after meeting them all, it's so cool to meet you guys. I can't believe it. But the person I'm really intended to set out to meet is Edith, my sister Edith. And my aunt goes, oh, well, she lives in Colorado Springs. I turn to my friend and go, holy shit, what? So she said, here's her names, her married name. You're probably going to have to go to an Indian bar and find her. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. So anyway, we get to Colorado Springs. My friend gets busy with her conference. I get busy hitting the street, finding. So we're at this 4-star hotel in Colorado Springs. I go down to the kitchen because I knew brown people would be down there. And I go, hey, brown people. No, I went down and I said, hi, excuse me. Can you guys tell me where the Indian bars are here in Colorado Springs? A couple of them look at me like, I'm all clean and shiny by now, right? And they go, why do you want to know where the Indian bar is? And I jokingly say, I'm planning a relapse. The guy said, no, I'm not planning a relapse. I'm looking for my sister. And they told me that I'd have to go. So each day I would go out to places that they told me to go. And on the third day, nothing yet. And I was like, what? How can I? So, but each place I went, here's my name. Here's where I'm staying. I'm looking for, here's her name. I understand she hangs out here, blah, blah, blah. The last night we're there, I'm so frustrated. And I go up to the bar and I say, hi, my name's Anna. So is that dude sitting a few stools down from me, hunched over his tapper. And he goes, and the bartender says, tell me her name again. I said, Edith Shale, but she could use White Hawk too. But Shale, and then this guy goes, I know her. So of course I think he just wants to talk to me. And I go, yeah, sure you do. And I start talking to the bartender, and he goes, I know her. And I like, oh yeah, well, tell me something about her. He was her ex-boyfriend. Can you fucking believe it? So I go over and he says, yeah, check this out. So he says, yeah, it's been 3 months since I've seen her. He said she probably is working at this place. He remembered her supervisor's name, the place where she worked. He said that you could probably also find her at the shelter. She could be staying at the shelter. Gives me that name, where that is. And he says, I'm here working on construction. Because I said, well, what's your name and where are you from? And he wrote his name, and I have it on the tab yet from the bar, but I can't read his handwriting. But anyway, he had all this info. Yeah. So anyway, I get all excited. I go back to the hotel. I call the shelter. I call her work place, and I said, I know there's all these laws that you can't say nothing, but listen, here's my name, here's my number, at home in Madison, here in Colorado Springs, until tomorrow night or the next morning, 2 mornings. Anyway, here's my information. She's never met me. She may or may not know about me. I don't know. So I go downstairs because I want to eat for free, because my friend has that sponsorship, because I'm poor at this time. And I go down, riding the elevator down, and by then everybody in her conference circle knows I'm trying to find my relative. And they go, Sandy, do you have any luck this time? And I go, no. I said, I guess I'm just going to let it go. I wasn't supposed to meet her for whatever reason. I don't know. I'll let it. So I get off the elevator, start walking, and in walks, just caught this little, and she's a little short and small, brown girl walking, combat boots, jeans and a t-shirt. And I kept following her across the thing. So she's walking this way, and I'm like stalking her from behind. And I watched her go up to the desk, and I watched the people look at her like, what are you doing here? Kind of look, because she didn't look like everybody else in the reception area there and the lobby. And I just went up to her and I said, excuse me. She looks at me and she goes, oh, you must be Sandy. And I'm like, fuck, what? And I said, why are you kidding me? And she goes, yeah. I said, and you're Edith? And she said, yes. And I said, oh my God, I'm your sister. And she goes, yeah, I know. I got you. Anyway, she had just checked in to the shelter, because you can't check in to a certain, time in the evening. And so she said, yeah, the dude down there told her that I was looking for her, and the shelter was blocks away. It was not hard to get to. As we talk and start connecting and sharing, she had just been kitty corner from the hotel all day long at the library, because that's where our unsheltered people often hang out. So she was literally just this radius away from me. Wow. As me just going on a whim with my friend in July of 1988 to meet. And so we met, connected, and that was crazy. So she, being older, remembered, and she said our mom had a lot of times where she would, felt bad, or she would wonder. And so she filled in a few blanks, and it was pretty amazing. It was just the miracle of that connection too. I mean, all things were happening just like that. So here's what I've put together with everything, because I still had so much to heal from all that disconnect. That when I started going to Sweat Lodge, I started going to Sundance, and really learning how we are to walk on a daily basis, and how our lives were, we were never alone. And I guess I needed those moments, like in the therapy group. I needed that moment to be extraordinary. I needed that moment to be extraordinary, to wake me up and say, see, you're not, just hang in there. You're not alone. Things are not all together yet. Your story's not over. And so it was a lot to heal, but I will never forget, as I started meeting traditional folks, started meeting older Indian, and when I'd always was encouraged to go talk to this elder, go talk to that elder. And I remember thinking, why do they always tell me go talk to an elder? And then that elders would often say, tell me about yourself. Well, where are you from? And I'd tell them my angry story and hurt story. And I'll never forget the first time one of them said, one said, we don't have, as Lakota people, she says, we don't have room in our heart for that kind of anger. So you'll have to work on that. And I remember thinking, oh, you have no idea what I went through. She's probably a boarding school survivor, right? She probably went through hell and back, right? And I just remember thinking, okay. And I didn't say anything else. Then this other elder tells me, you're right. And several told me this, you're right where you're supposed to be, on the path right now. And I remember thinking, did they not hear what I said? Are they just trying to, I don't know, this doesn't sound right. But I was quiet. I didn't say anything back. And then I had an elder tell me, you chose this life. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you are fucking kidding me. No way. Who chooses this? Who chooses to be taken away? Who chooses to be traumatized at age 18 months? Who chooses to this living this emotionally isolated life of who am I, where am I, and then my addiction and on and nobody chooses that. And I would talk a lot about it with my good friend who's no longer here, who put me on this path. Chris Leith was a real healer, one of the old school. He was a spiritual advisor to the National Indian Child Welfare Association for years, and just a grounded individual. And he says, well, you did choose this life. You did. There's reasons why. And I'd be like, yeah. So finally, I think it was, sadly, I think it was one time when somebody really threw a lateral violence kind of thing at me. And I remember thinking, really? This smart ass part of me wanted to go, that's all you got? Because the way I grew up, I'm like, that's it? You're going to just, try again. Yet it stung some, right? It did sting because it was a judgment about me. And I thought, no, I know I'm doing the right thing. And because other adoptees need to know they're okay with who they are, and they needed to hear that. And this person was really attacking me, saying, you don't know because you didn't grow up on the res, you didn't. And I thought, well, I do know some things. I'm not going to say I know what you know. I'm going to say I know what I know. And as I started sorting that all out, I started figuring it out that I did choose this life. I chose it because I knew I could go through what I went through. I could take those hits and I could come out on the other end with compassion in the way that without that no anger in our Lakota heart, like that grandma said. And then I just wept because I thought of my smart ass thinking, my cockiness, my, being mad, my, you made India, all of that. I started thinking about all of that and I was like, oh my God, and then I realized what a beautiful life I'd been given, and that I want this for our mothers. I want our mothers to know, who gave us life, that they don't need to feel guilty. They don't need to take that shame on, that they're doing the best they can. I never met a birth mother who was like, yeah, fuck those kids. I don't need to know those kids. They know they're not. They go to bed guilt-ridden, crying, feeling bad that they couldn't do anything different than they did that day. And I want adoptees to know that are blonde-haired, blue-eyed, whatever tribe, because we're mixed all these colors too, to not feel shame and guilt. That I can't tell you how many adoptees I meet and they'll say, I don't even know if I have the right to say I'm Indian. And I was like, yeah, you do, because it's who you are. And that's when I started realizing I did choose this life. I did choose it, and I'm okay with that now. I'm good with it today.
I know I do know some of your story because you've been a part of two great documentary films that are out there. One's PBS, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission up in Maine, and then Drew, our friend,
yeah.
Drew Nichols, that put you in. You're the star of the documentary of Blood Memory. So if anybody's listening to this, you should check both of those documentaries out. But I want to know how much of and this is what I feel from you, Sandy, from the first day that I ever met you, is that you are somebody that creates a large space for inclusion. You are funny, and you do cuss, and you do say as far as how much of part of that has been part of your healing journey, as far as helping others, like helping other people that have been adopted or looking to reconnect with their community. I know there is a question in the chat. Any advice you give to adoptees or people that have been disconnected from their tribal communities? But I remember in Blood Memory, there's a scene in there, and and I want to hear what you have to say, is that there's a talking circle that you're hosting. And it blows me away watching that, actually, because there's people that have been adopted out to foreign countries, like they're speaking with heavy accents, from foreign countries, and it just blows my mind. And part of the ceremony, is a metaphor, is a symbolic of being connected to earth and people, and you could find that, but there's nothing like coming back home and finding your people and finding your earth, your piece of the earth, So how much of helping others has been part of your healing journey, and any advice that you would give to others?
Well, it's been, what it has done is validated what Chris taught me all over and over and over, that we're all here for a reason. We all have this purpose. We all have a gift. And even if we're traveling back, we're still making our way home back to our circle. I think I just ended up doing what he did to me. It's like, here, this is where you need to be, and everybody else is here, and everyone's vital to our circle. Everyone is vital to this circle. And so I learned that from him, and also in these circles with adoptees, so many haven't told their story. We don't go back to the reservation and say, I want to tell you what happened to me. I don't think I ever told my Uncle Manford what I went through. It's okay, and it's okay. He didn't need to know that. His heart was full of enough stuff, right? And so everything. So I want, we're everywhere. If we're 1 in every 4 kids that was taken, just think how many of us are out there. Which is why I think that's how that song came about. The vision for the song and the here's what I really love is, like, every year's maybe you can put that one picture up of our Gathering for Our Children and Returning Adoptee powwow. So over the years, this powwow's grown from a social worker, actually, who wanted to have a powwow where she would recognize and make the community aware that children needed homes. And we started working together. Tina Nafla and Jackie Wilson are who I primarily work with that. Not that one, that we can do that one later, but yeah, a different one. It says I think it's on a page where there is by itself. But anyway, here's what I love is adoptees come back, and here in Minneapolis, we met every month from 2004 to about, and now we're meeting virtually. Once they understand that they have a voice and that they are they become who they're meant to be, then they share and they bring each other up. So when we have the powwow, the Gathering for Our Children and Returning Adoptees powwow every year in Minneapolis, I don't even sit in that circle. They take care of that circle. They take care of each other because they have been healing and share what they their experience, strength, and hope, I guess, just like how that 12-step philosophy, but they just share that. and encourage our relatives that they don't need to be afraid and ashamed, that this celebration is a celebration of them and our families. And oh, I just love to see that, because I was so afraid the very first time a story was done on me in the Chicago Tribune, and I did not want my face plastered up. I just remember thinking, this isn't good. This can't be. It's not about me. But someone told me, they said, Sandy, every story needs a face. Put your face out there for now and keep doing it. And someday you won't have to do it anymore. And then that's the part that got me to do it. I went, oh, okay. So in 2007, do you know Rachel Banks Cupshow, Sheldon or Shannon? Have you guys heard? Okay, so we have the first welcome home at the White Earth tribe for their relatives. And the Star Tribune came and spent the day with us. And guess who? They didn't even have a picture of me at all. They had a picture of Rachel and these other people. And I went, oh my God, that person was right. That it really ends up being that it's not about you, right? It's about all of us. And I was so tickled and to be able to, and I thank that person. Well, I had to thank him through prayer, but it's like, thank you for saying that, because I hung up on the person from the Chicago Tribune because she asked me a stupid question and I didn't want to talk to her. And then that person said, no, Sandy, you got to talk. You could get out there and just tell them your story. And a journalist told me, a native journalist, Patty Lowe, said, Sandy, every time a journalist talks to you, have what you're going to say ready. So no matter what question they ask you, you answer with what you want to say. And I went, oh, that's how that works. I didn't know. So,
you're ready to be a politician now too, right?
Put me out there. But anyway, so yeah, so now today we have these gatherings of welcoming. The White Earth Tribe has welcomed their relatives back for several years in a row now. And my tribe has finally started. And as a result of doing it, they finally also started a support group that meets every other week. Amazing. So here is and I know everyone, there should be a comma after the 9. And I tried to get people to fix that, but they didn't. So there we go. In Ojibwe, I don't know how to say this, but the theme was there is a returning, meaning their relatives are making their way home. So when you think about it, anyone show up the other one too, the one from Rosebud? I just wanted you guys to see these because they said, Sandy, how do you do this? What should we do? And I said, you make a flyer, you plan some food, you get your elders and your spiritual people, and they come. It's really quite simple. But in Rosebud, so my tribe and White Earth tribe is the only tribe that has welcomed our relatives back. And here's the flyer for our first one in 2015. And you see Wachoa Chage, Aki Unkupe, generation after generation, we are coming home. What really, remember when I said I was wrestling with the concept of you chose this life? And Wachoa Chage is one of the 7 sacred rites of the pipe. And when we pray Wachoa Chage, the generation past, the generation present, the generation yet to come. And Chris Leith is the one who coined that phrase for us and taught us the importance of that we were prayed for. I was prayed for before I ever was popped out in the back seat of that car. I was prayed for, as was my mother before she was born, as was my grandmother. All of us have been prayed for. Wachoa Chage, that generation past, because when we have ceremony, we thank our ancestors, right? And we're praying now for our children. And those of us, especially that have children, are praying for our grandchildren. We're thinking of them. We're thinking we want to make this better for them. So I was prayed for. That's amazing that where our name was not called out because we had not claimed that yet coming down here, but we were prayed for. And what a beautiful, strong concept that we have within our culture. And so as I was explaining that to our White Earth language speakers, he came up with the term, there is a returning. And I thought, yes, that's amazing. So we had a language class on the 2-day, we have a gathering beforehand and then we have the powwow, but at the gathering that I guess you call them forums or workshops. We have 2-day workshops. We have language teaching, all kinds of stuff. Many have their first sweat. But anyway, the language part was, I said, I'd like you to teach the Ojibwe adoptees to say, when somebody says, hi, how are you? Especially at the powwow, who are you? Say your name. And then you can say, many are afraid to say, well, I don't know anybody because I was adopted out. Maybe you could say, how do you say, I am returning? And then you say it in Ojibwe, and when you hit a language speaker, they'll hear that and validate that for you. And then that would start giving them strength of, yeah, you know, I am returning. And there's no shame in that because we have been prayed home.
There's so much power. And that's another thing that really strikes me about your story is because there's so much shame. I think the government policies that have disconnected us from community and have been really targeted towards Indian people, we carry that shame with us, and it's on so many different fronts. But when you say it out loud, Sandy, it destigmatizes it, you know, and like it totally takes that away. And that's the power that the medicine that you're giving to me, and I feel like you're giving to a lot of the listeners right now, is that that shame. We don't need to be ashamed anymore. Like we can heal. It's possible to heal.
Yes. We're all right where we're supposed to be, even if that spot feels difficult.
That's right.
Yeah,
is there anybody?
That used to make me so angry, Sandy, when I have elders tell me that you're right where you need to be. You're right there.
I know.
Oh, I would be so angry. You gotta be kidding me. I'm coming to talk to you because I don't want to be here.
Exactly.
It's not what it's supposed to be like.
Exactly.
So it's I'm so glad that you're talking about that, because it's reminding me of some things that I've been told as
and I'm not even a whole lot older than you, Shannon, but I'll never forget witnessing you talk at the first Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition thing, and I didn't hear what your job was, but I remember like that you were the director of the association yet. I just remember listening to you. I walked in and you had just started talking, and I said, what's that? You know, and they told me, and I was like, oh shit. Oh man, that's why I came up to you and introduced myself to you. And I said, and I may have even said that, I'm so glad that you're here, you know, and because I don't know what it was. I still don't know what it was. I just see you there, and it has to be your heart and your heart and your intellect aligned at all times when you're in this work. That's when we're in our best place to do the work that we're supposed to do. But it isn't always, and it isn't always feel good at the time, because sometimes stuff comes up, but it's all to bring us healing. But you, I thought that when I saw you, man, she is right there. Awesome.
Well, I just knew when I saw you, I fell immediately in love with you. It was just one of those, and I'm so glad to get to work with you. And you've touched so many people, Sandy. And there are people in our audience that are talking about you in such a positive way. Here's
there's Jan. Jan is awesome. Jan, and if anyone else makes it. So Jan ended up being in a video done by the NCJ, Council of Juvenile Family Court Judges, and some other folks did a video, and Jan was in the video. So Jan, the way Jan got connected is she saw that picture of when I said Rachel, when it wasn't my picture. She saw the story that the Star Tribune did, but Jan's awesome. She's now one of our elders in our group, and amazing.
Actually, on that, and I have a personal question that I want to know your insight on, because I know you did that movie or that film documentary up in Maine. But as far as the work that you're doing about healing and all this personal work that you've done and that you've shared with us on a larger scale, when it comes to national truth and reconciliation, when it comes to Indian policy, and we kind of started this off about we need to heal from 4 years of this past president, you know. And then longer than that, we need healing from the past 500 years of genocide that we've suffered, you know. So what are the implications, or what are some of the things that you see in the larger scheme? And I know you've done some work on the Truth and Reconciliation in both Canada and the United States. And so, well, I don't know, what's your insights on that, and any things that you could give us?
Well, it blows me away first that I didn't know. I held our first Truth, Healing, Reconciliation Circle in 2004 in Minneapolis. Oh, because I wanted judges, lawyers, guardian ad litems, mental health workers, social workers, anybody who made a decision about a child to hear what the long-term impact of those decisions could have.
What year was this again?
2004.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the evaluations and everything for you if you wanted. But I wanted them to hear what happens after those decisions are made. So then flash forward to, doing those, we did about 16 of them, and everyone was impacted by those. Social workers were, and certainly those that went through the experience of sharing their lived experience. They're in telling their truth. What I started seeing was that their life took on a different meaning because they got to explain, hey, this is what happened to me as a result of that decision. So you become an educator through your experience. What I saw in Canada as an honorary witness to the Truth and Reconciliation in residential schools, the same thing on a larger, much larger scale of, this is my truth. I'm not, I'm in my strength now, and I have full understanding of what this was. And you can't deny these testimonies. And before I was really, I don't know where, it must have just, the creator must have just planted it in my head, because before I even went to do the work in Canada and Maine, I had stopped calling them stories. And I said, these are testimonies. This is a result of a legal decision made terminating parental rights, severing our ties to our nations. This isn't a story. This is a testimony of what happened as a result of the courts. That makes it a testimony. And so when we were in Canada, I saw the strength of that. And people are afraid of, oh, we can't have all this emotion. We can't do this. Yes, we can. We can. We need to. And the results are healing. We had all kinds of reactions, thoughts of, like when I was doing them before I went to Canada, and even when we were in Maine, we had some conversation around, I don't want to take care of white people that are crying in the circles. And I said, well, if we invite people here and they cry, as much as we don't want to take care of them, we have to, because we asked them to come here and they're hearing something that maybe they didn't understand and know. Well, how could you not know? I mean, well, because you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And so here's an example that I learned, and this is why I truly believe in these circles, is we did a Truth, Healing, Reconciliation in Duluth with quite a few foster youth and large community turnout, workers and the like, and community members, professor from the University of Duluth, and probably about 60 people. And we broke into our small groups, and this one what we asked is whatever our youth wanted to share, and they were aged 14 to 17. Whatever you wanted to share for a social worker to know about your life, share it. Share just one thing. And social workers, we want you to listen at this point. We're not asking you to speak and fix anything. You just need to hear what happened. So this one young man shares his experience, and he shared how his multiple placements, he was abused in most of them. And he said, but the part that was the hardest for me was when it was my birthday. I would tell my worker I want to talk to my mom on the phone, and I never got to talk to my mom on my birthdays. So he just got through telling us he had been molested, that he had been beaten, that he had been hungry. And the thing that hurt him the most, he literally said, the thing that hurt me the most was I didn't get to talk to my mom on my birthday. Now, as a social worker, I started putting up on their hats, and I thought, I bet you maybe they tried to find her. Maybe they thought this kid doesn't need to talk to their mom because their mom might be high or drunk, but it's still their mom, they need that connection regardless. And anyway, this elder lady, social worker's over there, and all of a sudden her shoulders are going, and we realize she's weeping. And we don't say anything. She doesn't try to fill up the space with anything. I mean, she's actually trying to hide, and she eventually does speak and say, she just looks up and says, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I've done this. I've done this to some of my, kids in my care. And I'm just so sorry. And I thought, okay, well, that's good. And that young man, I can't remember what she said after that. She said something, and he said, well, now you know. And he got up and he walked a few steps across this little circle and just kind of just gently tapped her on the shoulder and went back and sat down. And I thought, well, that's like 10 years of therapy for both of them. And others later, when I tell this story, they say, she robbed him of his moment. I said, no, she did not rob him of his moment. His moment was a moment of strength to say, this is what happened to me. This is what I wanted, and you didn't give it to me. And she felt that. And all he did was acknowledge that she felt that. And if we can't have those exchanges, that didn't let her off the hook. Nobody said, you're okay now. Nobody even talked to her. It was interesting. I thought, well, just let it be. And at the end, we had a healing circle for everybody. But nobody took anything from anybody during that exchange. We spoke to the boy afterwards, checked in with him, and he was in a good place because he said his truth. And he said his truth in a place that taught somebody, that impacted them. And the evaluations that came back from that circle that we had was amazing. So by the time I go to Maine, and being chosen to be one of the 5 commissioners for the state of Maine for their truth and reconciliation, I have some experience in circles, and I trust them. If you're taking care of them, and you do have to hold them and take care of them, and you don't get to say, white people, you don't get to cry, because they do get to cry, and they do get to go, oh my God, I don't want to be part of this anymore. Tell me what to do and I'll change what I'm doing. Because we forget that most people, this is what I learned, is most people that are social workers are there. And I'm saying most, there's always somebody who's, are there because they have been given a gift and a desire to work with families. Yeah. Then they get in there and the system messes everything up. They have their own biases. They have to unlearn those. But it doesn't mean that they can't learn. And it doesn't mean that they don't want to learn. Mm-hmm. And so, that sifting out part, that's, that can come. But my job is just to get people in a circle and hear this truth, right? And so in Maine, I was so proud of the communities. They came together. They shared either on a film, audioed, or they spoke it and somebody wrote it, or they did it anonymously or non-anonymous, and they spoke and told their truth. And from that truth, we were able to write a report and be able to prioritize what we needed, what we wanted the state to see that they needed to address. And interestingly enough, the first recommendation that we had was to respect tribal sovereignty, because that's where it all starts, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, I know another outcome from that, it's really remarkable, is there's no mascot. There's no racist mascot in the state of Maine. And now the NFL team, the Washington team, has changed their name as well. So that's, I think there are some big impacts that your work is far reaching, actually.
Yeah, so lots of little side things that they wouldn't expect. I mean, I remember we were at a public event sharing our report. There were a bunch of teachers there, and they were huddled up in the corner, and I'm all nosy. I'm like, why are you guys all over there? What's happening? We're putting our heads together to figure out how do we rewrite Maine history.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? And so if that wasn't in our recommendations, but people, when you exposed and put the truth there are so many people who want to do good work, building work, healing work, and they have gifts like crazy. And so I thought that was so cool that there they were putting their heads together right there. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it?
I think that's such an amazing thing. And on the individual aspect of having lived experience, or having people that have gone through some terrible things, being able to become a teacher, and such an empowerment that comes along with that, being able to give voice to that and testimony to that. I don't know, so impactful and then so healing when it comes to the journey of truth and reconciliation, individually and systemically.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed about Sandy, though, too, Sheldon, and I know you've noticed it too, is that it's not just tears that bring healing. And one of the best nights I've had in probably the last several years was an evening in November at the Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition, where I sat at the table with Sandy and George and members of the cast of the 1491s. And it was the most, and I needed it so much. It was a really difficult time in my life. And to sit next to George and Sandy and just watch the hilarity ensue, it was awesome. And Sandy and George are the best couple for that, man. If you need to laugh, just say hi to George, and before long,
Did you guys see what he did to me the other day with my sandwich?
Something about what was
okay? So I was in the living room or at the dining room doing some Zoom thing. I love those Crustable sandwiches, those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I was such a snob. I thought, who buys peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? And then I had one. I'm like, oh my God, that's why they buy them. So anyway, it's frozen. I always put it on the windowsill to thaw. Put it there, go back to my Zoom call, finish my Zoom call, come back. George is at the stove fixing something. And I go, oh, my sandwich is gone. And I pinched him because I said, where's my sandwich? Because I knew he messed with it. He goes, I get blamed for everything. I don't know where your sandwich is. I go, yes, you do. And I pinched him harder. I said, where is it? And then I look up and I go, it's taped to the window, right? Taped to the window. I go to grab it and it's taped on the outside of the window. And I'm like, ah! So I go out and get it. But I mean,
you taped your sandwich to the outside of the window?
Yes.
Who does that?
That's my baby.
Who does that, man?
That's my. So he's a funny one, actually.
I really like your guys' story about how you met and just like his Omaha charm, man. His Omaha charm.
Yes.
Too much to resist.
You don't see it coming, man. You don't see it coming. All of a sudden.
I know. People tell me all the time, you're so funny. I'm like, no, he's funny. He's the funny one. But I know I like, who thinks of that, right? And I'm like, oh, fun. But yeah, that night at Tulalip was amazing. And that Bobby Wilson's lived in Minneapolis for many years. So if George and I are present for anything he does, of course we get picked on and teased, and we go with it because it's so much fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was a wonderful time. Good healing time. I felt good that you got to sit there with us, Victoria's Suite, and we're just, oh, what a night of just relaxing and laughing and big fun.
Oh, yes.
Big fun.
Yes. Whew. Well, this has been an incredible I'm so grateful to you, Sandy. And by the way, so Sandy is a board member, so she attended.
Can you believe it? No.
I know I can't, but she attended our repatriation conference last year, and I was so grateful to have her because I tend to be, and Roy always makes fun of me during the show during Red Hoop Talk, that I'm pretty like rigid and strict and often wear blinders and sometimes don't take a breath, and want people to work on my schedule instead of so working with Sandy, with the repatriation conference, I would be up at the podium and Sandy would be down where the tables and everything are. Saying, no, Shannon, we need time for this. You need to give people time and space. We're going to burn some sweetgrass, you know. It was the best, and I was so grateful to have that someone to bring me back down to earth, really.
Yeah.
And thank you, Sandy, for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
You've been a great help. I remember you, and I always try to be a little bit better and not be so rigid and. Yeah,
it's I learned from the best. I learned from the best on that, and I was still a little shy. Every once in a while, I still get a little shy of that, but I got to tell you this story too. So Chris Leith, this incredible speaker, very quiet, soft-spoken man, literally would just like he'd be at a powwow and all these bells, jingles, all this noise, powwow noise. But if he started talking, it was as if everyone stopped and listen to him. He was that. So he and I get invited to go to this MAN conference, it's called. And I can't even remember what MAN stood for, but it was a diverse group of men for wellness, Hispanic, African-American, Native American, and just everybody was, all races were there. So, and it was on wellness. And I go up with him. He wants me to come up and stand next to him when he does this. He's invited there to speak. I was invited to be like the sidekick in the workshop later. But they had the spiritual guys introduce themselves. So this, I can't remember what tribe in Texas this one guy is from, and this African spiritual guy and somebody else, and gets to Chris. And all they're supposed to do is introduce themselves. And he introduces himself, but then he starts talking like he's starting to just talk. And I'm going, oh. And I'm just kind of standing there. And so way in the back, this is like probably 300 plus people in this room. And along the back wall, these people are going, time. And I'm like, And I'm like just standing there going, I can't do anything about this. He just keeps talking. And on the front row, there is like a whole row of like gangster guys, like they had those shorts with the high socks and their bandanas and stuff. And they're on the very front row sitting here. And suddenly, and then all of a sudden those guys that were on the back row come up to us behind me. And they're like, they kind of got whispering to me, he's got to stop talking. And I'm like, I can't do that. And they're going, oh, no, but finally he hears it and he goes, what? And I said, they're saying that you have to stop now because they have this agenda. He goes, oh. He looks around, he goes, well, excuse me. They have a schedule? And I go, yeah, they have a schedule. I'm just like dying here. Right? And he goes, that reminds me of a story.
Yes.
About time. And so those guys, those gangster guys, just all high-fiving each other because he started to just tell this story about time and how clocks entered our life and this. I mean, he told this incredible story, right? They get done, and I'm like, oh, anyway, so we're done, and I'm apologizing. I'm sorry. It's, you can't do anything about it. Well, we go out to have a cigarette when it was all over, sitting in the outside there, having coffee and a cigarette, and a line literally formed to speak to him. Thank you, Elder Chris, for sharing what you shared. This one guy comes, he says, you know what? I never come to plenary sessions ever, but something told me to come down this morning. I needed that story. I've just been diagnosed with hypertension and blah, 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 blah. What you said is true. I need to take back my life. And I'm like, yeah, at least an hour's worth of people talking to us. So I kind of learned, when I say I learned from the best, and watching that, I'm just like, wow, so sometimes you do have to just slow things down and find that space where everyone can breathe. But yeah, he was great for that. I'll never forget that. I was my first experience in the big scene of an elder just kind of just going, I'm talking.
Yep, for sure.
I know you have a book on meditations. Is there anything that you want to share and give a shout out to, or before?
So I really like this book. It's called Cherokee Feast of Days, and it's daily meditations, which are really like, they make you stop and think about things. And I really liked yesterday's mention. So this is it's written by this Cherokee lady, and when you look her up online, she has a lot of books out on spirituality and just philosophy. But I'm just going to read this one really quick. It says, every time we think, we make a mental picture. The more we look at the picture on the motion picture screen of our minds, the more real it becomes. We forget what it is, that it's imagery, but our emotions pick up on what the mind has seen, and the image causes delight or tears or even anger. Our emotions manipulate us, cause us to do things we would never do under different circumstances. When we give in, these mental suggestions cause us pain, jealousy, and even anger. If our mental vision tells us we have been wronged, anger causes us to react foolishly. In such cases, we tend to go on the warpath, not for any common sense reason, but because we fed ourselves the wrong mental pictures. And then she always has a quote by one of their leaders. It says, we do not take up the warpath without a just cause and honest purpose. It gives you that pause to slow down and think. And I've had this for years, and I read it and reread it, and it always gives me something. So it's the Cherokee Feast of Days. You can just put that in Google if you wanted to, and you'll find that book. It's pretty awesome.
Wow, thank you so much. That's great. Thank you.
You bet.
Well, I know I have a week's worth of honest warpath making ahead of me. How about y'all?
You want to give anybody else a shout out? Those are lovely earrings that you're wearing. Who made those for you?
Oh, these are Carol Charging Thunder. Yes, indeed. They are little tiny beads, y'all. And right up on this part here is the eagle feather. It has a matching medallion, but yeah, Carol Charging Thunder. The best. She's really good. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. They are cool. Little tiny beads. Just I don't get to see who's on.
Oh, you don't get to see the comments?
So the last comment I saw, this could be shared to the group about state disproportionality. I have to get up here because I only got one.
Private. So you're in the private chat. So
comments. Duh. Oh, there they are. Hey, everybody.
And you can scroll up and down.
Yeah. Yeah, and everybody out there, I got one eye that works and the other one doesn't work yet because I'm in the middle of cataract surgery. Oh, and Geo. So Geo's another White Earth adoptee who is just, it's an amazing, all these amazing stories. And who else is here? Let me see. I'm so glad you guys are able to be on there. It would be really cool to have a panel of adoptees like Geo and Nelson and Jan. They could talk about how they found healing by just coming together, sharing and participating in our powwows that welcome our relatives back into the circle. And it would be awesome. I mean, we haven't really even talked about how the community healing, community building part of this happens by bringing your relatives back, and they have that lived experience of coming home to their homeland there in White Earth. And Nelson, the reason that there's even a group that has met every month since 2004 is, remember I said that I had that first Truth Healing Reconciliation forum in 2004. Nelson, who is an adoptee from Canada, was at that event, and he came up to me when it was over and he said, Sandy, we would like to get together some of the other adoptees, and talk. And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, I was traveling with this elder, Chris Leith, a lot at that time, and Nelson would just email me every now and then. Hey, Sandy, I know you're busy traveling. I just want to remind you it'd be really good if we could meet. And I'd think, yeah, I'll have to do that. And finally, I got us together. We met a few places until we landed a permanent home at All Nations Indian Church. Gave me a key, said, here, you can use our space. And we've been meeting there ever since, once a month. And so Nelson, if we wouldn't even be there if it weren't for Nelson. And then everybody coming every month and sharing food and sharing their lived experience. And Tara Lynn, I don't think I know her. It's a lesser than feeling like I'm not qualified to be part. Yes, it's so true, because, and then sadly, there will be people who tell you, they throw the Indian card at you. I'm more Indian than you, but they don't know any better. They've been hurt too. So we have to be, strong and remember that that's not about us. But I know I've had so many adoptees. Well, they would call and say, I want to come to your group, but I don't know if I can, because I'm not even sure. I probably am just a quarter Indian, if that. Mm-hmm. And so I have to give them that talk that, it's not about that. You were born Indian. No one can take that away from you. And it doesn't matter. How, what your blood quantum is. And then I tell them the story of how I remember Chris Leith telling me that. He said, are you enrolled? And I go, yeah, actually I am. I've been enrolled since birth. He goes, well, don't be too proud of that enrollment card. He says, all it is a prisoner of war number. So those old school dudes know what day it is, right?
That's right.
They know that it comes with a price.
Yes. Right.
And I'll just always remember that, and so, yeah, I'm proud that I'm a Sicangu. I'm proud of that. But it is true. It was a prisoner of war number. And when I hear some of the stories of how they even came and gave numbers, like even on our tribe, I remember one of our communities talked about how if a person was married to a white person, when they were first giving out those numbers, they gave the white people numbers too. Right. Everybody got numbers. Yep. So it's so inaccurate. And that it came from a horse breeding thing is just sad and awful. And
so interesting. I've been following on social media, and I think we do experience a lot of lateral violence when it comes to questioning identity. So it is refreshing to talk to you about, I don't know, just hearing share your vulnerable story and share about your journey about reconnecting. Because I feel like more times than not, actually, I reflect on this. If you don't mind me being autobiographical for just a second.
Oh, not at all.
My dad, who grew up on reservation, spoke his language first, no ceremony, no songs, knows all those things that when we have the Indian contest, puts him at the highest of the list. But even he, I sense and I hear from him, he's even said, you know what, I'm not connected anymore. I'm living like a white man. He'll say that. I'm living like a white man. Where if you saw him, there's nothing
white about him.
Yeah, he can't even act like he is, actually. And so but there's so much shame in that. And the center of that is I think there's been many sources that have taught us this, like in Hollywood being number one, like there's a Hollywood Indian and it looks like this and acts like this and speaks like this. And so, and none of us live up to that actually. And so there is this great struggle that we're having with identity, and especially with lateral violence. And like I said, I introduced you this way as I always felt you've always connected and made a big circle. And I've never seen you ever do anything like even close to lateral violence or like, oh, that person doesn't belong or anything like that. You make a big circle that a lot of people can be in. And there's a lot of healing that happens with that, both for everybody in the circle, actually. I always think that's really fascinating, even timely right now is like, how do we, like, Indian identity is so broad, and this show, Red Hoop Talk, is an example of that. Like, so many people have come on, and there's just such a spectrum of Indian identity, and we're all Indian.
Yes.
Even though we have different journeys, we're all connected. We're all relatives.
Exactly. And especially as it relates to adoptees, like I think of Gio, who's on here. Oh, my cousin. Hello, Lynn. Woohoo!
Is this
Lynn LaPointe. What was I going to say now? I started thinking, oh my God, Lynn, can't we get him on and have him tell a joke? Okay. Remember, you met Lynn. He was at in Tulalip, Shannon. Remember the big, tall Indian dude?
Yeah.
That's Lynn. Yeah, that's Lynn. Yeah.
Well, if I had Lynn's address, I'd send him a quick invite and get him on here.
Put your address on there, cousin. But so Gio, back to Gio. So Gio was in an adoptive home that was really loving and kind, right? And yet she still had that deep grief. So many people think that you have to come from this dark place of abuse, but not at all. And you can love your adoptive parents if you have that healthy relationship with them. You can and should maintain that relationship, and it can expand into your relatives who, your Indian relatives. Our heart is big enough for everybody, right? We can do that. So, there are a few people in our group that they didn't have that. And there's my Luke Crane. Okay, so Luke Crane's a jingle dress dancer. Hey, you'll see her in that. You'll see her in the video. She is a jingle dress dancer and my Sundance sister and my all around homie. who if I ever lost my mind and committed murder, I could run to her house and she'd protect me.
Dig the hole to bury the body.
She would. Anyway, I was gonna say, so in our ceremony when we welcome our relatives back, Chris was the one who said we need to address that grief and the pain of that grief and loss. And he said, we should do that with our jingle dress dancers. We'll use them. And so my friend Lou is the one that always comes. She says, yo, yeah, that's how we greet each other. Yo, here we are, these grandmas. Yo. But so she's always been there to help from the very beginning and all our dancers, all our jingle dress dancers that come and to our powwow, to our ceremonies, and offer that time of their gift that they've been given as a dancer to heal our relatives. And our relatives who go through that ceremony talk about what it means and how they can feel that energy as they're being fanned off as our dancers go by. And sometimes we'll have 25, 30 dancers. Can you imagine what that must feel like for our relatives who have some of them, maybe it's their first time hearing the drum, the first time standing in a circle, just how that must feel to be taken care of in that way by our beautiful dancers. It's just amazing.
Do you want me to play that?
Yeah, let's play that, and I can take a quick break. So this is, I don't know if George is on. Are you on, George? George, he's always in the background, knows everything that's going on, and sometimes I don't even realize that he's taking video. So he had all this footage that he took at the powwow 2018 in White Earth, and put this song to it, which is written by Michael Jacobs. If you'll see the credits at the end, but it's beautiful. He did an incredible job.
I might be having some.
I'll be right back.
Okay, I might be having some technical difficulties. Here we go. Potentially. Let me make sure I can get this on. I think my computer may be getting overloaded and I might be having difficulties. Oh, is everyone leaving me? Oh, there you are. Let me check.
I know sometimes the streaming helps when you turn off your video, so I always turned my video off to see if it helped the streaming.
Yeah, so if I can. All right, I think I've got it going on. Let me see if I can share it now, and it will work. All right, I'm going to play this. Oh, wait, hold on. You're not going to be able to hear it. One more time. Let me try it one more time. This is why I need someone to like be my production specialist so they can deal with all this stuff.
That's right.
Here we go. Let's try this. See if you can hear it. Can you hear it?
Yes, you can hear it.
All my relations, it's been a long time we've been apart. But my relations, the grieving has passed. Song of joy fills our hearts. Welcome home, welcome home. Welcome home, my loved ones, welcome home. Welcome home, I said welcome home. Welcome home, I said welcome home. I said welcome home. Children returning from faraway lands, mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, generationing from the four winds, brothers and sisters, we're all here as one. Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home, my loved ones, welcome home. Welcome home, I said welcome home. Welcome home, I said welcome home. I said welcome home. They're trying upon the people rejoice. We're all here together and we say with one voice, welcome home. I said welcome welcome home, welcome home. Welcome home, welcome welcome home, welcome welcome home, welcome welcome home. I said 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 welcome home. Yeah. I said welcome home. I said welcome home. Yeah. I said welcome home. I said welcome home. I said welcome home.
Wow.
So that song, as you saw, was written by Michael Jacobs. He wrote it, I believe, like right around 2001. I met him and shared what the work I was just beginning to start at that time. And he had his own experience and wrote that song and dedicated it to the work. And so it's an amazing song. And didn't George do an amazing job putting that together? And so for me, it was really cool to see, because I don't get to see it. I'm in it, so you don't get to see it, and to see that line of those relatives and like Jan or Gio, I can't remember, one of them said, we don't tell the people to say welcome them home. They do that automatically on their own. They say welcome home to our relatives that are, and to just hear that is is healing in itself. So it's our community healing each other. And so it's like you can come together, and sure, there might be some sorrow, like the arena directors are out there saging people off. The veterans are saying, thank you for doing this. And I'm thanking them for being there, standing and watching for us, taking care of that circle. And it's an incredible community healing and community building time. And you just got to take that little bit of time out and then just go back to powwowing and eating your tacos. I love that about our way of life, that we can be sincerely and deeply into a part of our circle, of taking care of that part of our circle. But yeah, and that is just amazing. I was like, wait, I don't know if George ended up at the last minute taking our Navajo grandma, had to go to the store to get something to cook. So I think I don't know if he's back yet or not, but I wanted, did you guys want to, I just want to make sure that we address what Lynn said in here, but you guys never have you seen that video, Sheldon?
I haven't seen it. That was really well done. I didn't know George have much skill, actually. I do agree with Lynn on this, where she said that George is so Omaha that he's 2016th Omaha.
Isn't that funny? Oh, those guys, I tell you. They're amazing. And Lynn is 18/16 Sicangu.
Hey, I invited Lynn to join us, but he's not joining us, so he must need a shower or something.
Oh, shoot. And we meet relatives at funerals, another place where we meet relatives. So I was home 2004, one of our grandpas passed, and I went to the funeral. And I used to hear my brother talk about this guy, Lemoyne. And I remember it because that's an unusual name. I'd never heard it before. And he goes, yeah, he's my brother. We grew up together out here. And so then Lemoyne was home at that time for the funeral of our one of our grandpas there. And so then the following year, I end up marrying George, moving to Minneapolis. And then George had gone to that funeral with me. And he goes, don't you have a relative named Lemoyne? And I said, yeah. And he goes, he's working at the Indian Center now. I'm like, ah. So we connected, and Lynn came over, picked me up, and we all went to lunch and were reconnected, and we're cousins. And it was great to make that connection, to have relatives right here in Minneapolis. It was pretty cool. But yeah. So oh yeah, so yeah, Gio says, so Gio was the one in the green shawl standing there by herself in the beginning. And Jan you had a yellow top, and my friend Lou was there in her blue jingle dress. That was her. So how long does it take to get involved with the village gossip and know the village characters? Not long. Not long at all.
Well, and part of that's probably because we, that's an easy way for us to come together and start talking.
Yeah.
Sit around, have a cup of coffee, and start laying out who lives where and who lives with who and who's doing who and watch out over there. And when my daughter was a young teen, and so we'd go to the powwows, of course, she's out looking for boys and stuff. So she'd meet a boy, she'd have to come back to my sister-in-law and say, are we related? It turned out so many times she'd meet somebody they were related. So she gave up with Rosebud guys. She was always ended up somehow related. So she went south, found a Navajo guy. I was always disappointed in Choctaw, man. They were just always a little too round. They were just a little too round.
Well, George was a lean machine when I met him, and then I fluffed him up.
See, now that's cool. That's okay.
Yeah, I fluffed him up. He'd say, "Can you make that?" I'd be, "I sure can." Love does that. Did anybody have any comments or thoughts of the from the film, or the asking any questions about how your community could do this in your community? Ask away. I remember saying to the spiritual leaders I was around in the early days, and said, we could do this every year. Every powwow could take the 45 minutes to welcome their relatives back. That's all it takes. And could plan a day or two gathering beforehand to teach them, to connect them, to give them the opportunity to share what happened to them, and and welcome them back. I was very afraid when I stood in front of my own people to talk and do that. I was nervous, but I thought, I know that there's an adoptee in here right now. I know there's somebody who needs to hear this, and so I'm going to say it. But I was scared with my own folks. But I did it anyway. What the heck? I always compare my life to what it used to be like when I was out to lunch, and I think, I already did all that. I'm sober and clean now. Nothing I can do is gonna, match that.
Yeah.
Always lean, right? Oh, it's Cheyenne. Somebody said Cheyenne's always lean.
I was gonna say it, but Lance added it to the chat there. Us Cheyennes just with our gifted genetics here. So.
Well, too, That's another thing that happens when adoptees go home. So never having met any other any women, Indian women, right? So I was always pretty skinny as a young person. And I, of course, I always thought I was fat, but I was skinny. And when I went home and met my family, or just walked around the reservation, I was like looking at women going, I'm shaped like that, and it started changing how I saw myself, and I started relaxing into my body that I got an Indian woman's body. I ain't got no butt, I got shoulders, I got a little pouch. I've had that pouch since forever, and I just like no more shame in there. This is who I am. And it was so profound of a reaction. I was in a gas station, and I was realizing that I wasn't getting that look of who the hell are you? I was just getting that, who are you? Hey, does everybody know who she, just getting that look of, and looking at them and thinking, oh, shoot. And I remember I had to duck into the bathroom quick, and I just had to have a little time of tears because all these years, up until I was, this was like when I was 38, 39-ish, finally being there for like a week at a time or stay for a month at a time, I would have those reactions because I don't know how to explain to anybody who's not had this experience of when you look in the mirror and you see brown, and you could look at me because I'm light skinned, but in the summertime as a kid, I got pretty dark and got called the N-word and all of that. And among the German area that I was raised in, I was pretty dark considering their skin is really white. So that's all I see reflected back to me. So when I looked in the mirror, all I could come up with is that there was something wrong with me. Oh, I hated my face. I hated my teeth. I felt that they were like these huge teeth. I hated everything. I could pretend that I was okay. I was the best pretender ever. And I think all adoptees are. We can fake anything. And I would, smile and whatever, but inside, I felt really, most of us, and I certainly did, I felt very ugly, very awkward feeling, very whatever. And then when the more I was home, the more I was around Indian women, and then having them call me skinny when I was not, didn't even see myself as skinny, but I was thin, and laugh about it and laugh about our bodies and love our bodies all at once.
Yes.
Right? Because we're not the standard on TV, but we're really freaking awesome in who we are. Whether we got sweatpants and a t-shirt or whether we're in our powwow regalia, we are slamming.
Just don't have good butts, man. Just we have fun.
Well, because my kids are dad's white, so I remember, my daughter's going to kill me for this, but I don't care. I remember her body takes after the white side, so she has like a butt, and everyone teased her about that forever. Daddy, oh my God, she has a butt. I said, it's okay. I said it's the white side of her. But just be able to embrace all our differences and all our strengths, and it's just, it was so refreshing to not have that negativity, because I'm telling you, in the white world, white women are exceptionally critical of themselves and each other, and there is this constant pressure. And certainly we have it somewhat in Indian country, but the difference is amazing. The difference is totally amazing. The difference is, tease each other about, yeah, those are really, really awesome earrings. Look better on me though. Just kind of just teasing it, but uplifting nevertheless, always at the same time, and just saying, no, you are good the way you are. This is who we are. And I heard it, or I read it. I think I read it, that Indians are built like buffalo, at least the ones out the west way. We have big shoulders, no butt. Skinny legs.
I think that is an interesting cultural, and I've thought about that as well. Like, I don't know, having like whatever we look like, and I think we are in popular society, dominant society has really made us be critical of that. And to the point of like, where we have so much shame about Indian identity, none of us fit the archetype of what it means to be like, I don't have washboard abs, like
Yeah.
and like having a big nose, like and in Cheyenne, like they would call people that in a teasing way, and it wasn't like looked at as like a derogatory thing. It was just like, hey, you have a big nose, and that's
Yep.
hilarious, like
It's my Cheyenne nose.
yeah, it's like a beak here, and it's not necessarily supposed to be any. It doesn't stigmatize. It's not like like a huge character flaw or anything like that. It's something to laugh about and enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah, there are no Indian women like except for Cher, maybe, who have done the, plastic surgery.
Cher. Oh yeah, she's our what you call it, token
half-breed.
Yeah. Half-breed. Oh my God.
That should
when that song was out. Oh my God. I was in the service. I can still remember driving around with my friends, and oh God, I just wanted to break my beer bottle and.
That's some comedic gold, though. If you want to laugh at something that's not supposed to be funny, you watch that music video.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Oh shoot! How sad is that? Oh my gosh. But yeah, so it was really it's really awesome.
Her and Elvis were who we looked up to, man. Her and Elvis.
And y'all forgot. And Loretta Lynn.
Oh,
Loretta Lynn. She was a for real though.
Is she native?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep, I read her autobiography, and yeah, she's Indian.
Oh wow.
Yep. Cherokee.
Sing good, huh?
I know. I know.
Well, what do you think? It looks like looks like the sun's gone down where you are, Sandy.
It did. What does that mean? What time is it? 8:30.
I don't know.
That's not bad. 2.5 hours of party.
No, you are the award winner for our longest Red Hoop talk show.
Cool. Cool.
Yay, everyone, applause. A laugh track or applause meter or something.
That's right. We should get one. Thank you so much. It's so good to connect with you, Sandy. It's always good to see you. And even though it's through this way, it's still awesome to see you.
It is awesome to see you.
Nothing but the highest love to you and your family and to George. So
thank you. You too. Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, give everyone hugs, and we're going to have to do this again. And I wanted to share with everyone, if you want to get a hold of Sandy, maybe to do is just reach out to the Association on American Indian Affairs. If you want to do a return sorry, that's not the right word.
A welcome.
Welcome and bringing people back home at your local powwow or at your tribal powwow or other event. We can put you in touch with Sandy and you can talk to her about that work and what it would take. Would love to do that. Anyway, and be supportive of these issues. That sound good, Sandy?
It sounds good. This was big fun. Thank you so much, Shannon, for asking me. And what fun that it was Sheldon. Who would have thought that Sheldon back a few years ago and Shannon that we'd be doing this? There are blessings in this COVID time. There really are. There's a lot of difficulty, but there are some blessings in there. And this is one of them. We would not have this connection. We wouldn't have been talking about this. There wouldn't be people seeing about it. So it's really, really a blessing. And I hope that at some point, maybe we could have a panel of our relatives, just share a little bit different experiences and encourage, that really encourages others as well. So maybe down the road, as we do continue this, but thank you.
All right, Sandy, we're going to say good night. We're going to pull you back down. You can hang out and we'll talk to you after we turn the show off. So everyone say good night to Sandy. Good night, Sandy.
Okay.
All right, Sheldon. Wow. Thank you for joining me. This has just been an incredible evening. I'm so glad to be able to spend it with you and with Sandy and our friends there in the chat room.
For sure. 2.5 hours went by really fast. Wow, that was really
Yeah, it really did. It
And
really
she's
did.
a gifted storyteller, as everybody has commented. So this is really great and an enjoyable conversation.
So do you have anything before we go, Sheldon, that you want to plug or talk about or mention?
No, I don't.
Nothing to plug. Well, let's just plug Sheldon, our friend Sheldon. Thank him for being with us and on short notice. Thank you so much.
Really quick, I will plug just well-being. I think Sandy gave us a good example of that. And so just taking care of yourself. And I know COVID is tough. And so that's, I don't know, self-care. So if I want to plug anything, it's that. Get out, go for a hike, tell people that you love them. Love yourself. So I think that's what I'll plug.
That's right. Thank you. Thanks, Sheldon. And I want to just remind you all that the Association on American Indian Affairs makes our show possible. So thank you. If you are so inclined to donate and support the work that we do, including Red Hoop Talk, go to our website and you can donate there. Next week, we have another wonderful special guest. His name's Dallin Maybe. He's Northern Arapaho and Seneca. He's an artist. He's a lawyer. He's working at the Native American Rights Fund right now as a development director. He is about as tall as Bigfoot, and I hope he'll fit in our camera. And he's great to talk to. He's smart, he's funny. And so that is next Sunday.
My good friend, tell him hi for me again. Well, yeah, it's my good friend. So
everybody knows everybody, and I may need to call on you again, Sheldon, in case Roy is too busy trying to make a living.
Yeah, that's right. The big bucks that I make here on Red Hoop Talk. It's
we play with the big bucks here. I'm going to send Sheldon some sage is probably what's going to happen.
No, it's fine. I'd be happy to do that. Dallin's amazing, actually. He's a funny guy.
Awesome. Awesome. So with that, let's say Yakoke, good night. Everyone be well, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Yep. Miash.